Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to another Heroes of the Storm video. Today I'm going to be covering a hero named Raynor, which I would highly recommend to start off with when you just get access to the game. A lot of people are getting beta invites right now, but maybe you're watching this video in a couple of months and the game is released and you're thinking about trying this game out. I would highly recommend giving Raynor a try right from the get-go. The nice thing about Raynor is that you can get him really early on in the game and that he is pretty straightforward to play. Heroes of the Storm in general is a team-based game. You need to basically make sure that you capture objectives and actually capture like tributes and collect skulls and whatnot in order to win. If you don't do that, you may be the very best hero in the game, or you may know how to play the very best hero in the game, but if you're not doing any of the team objectives and you're not a team player in general, you're just not going to achieve a whole lot. So to start off with, I would highly recommend Raynor because he's straightforward to play and very easy to pick up. The nice thing about Raynor is that you really only have two abilities that you need to be worrying about at all times. That is going to be first off your Q, which is basically a skill shot, and then your W, which is an AoE buff. We will go in depth on those abilities in a little bit. However, your E is a passive ability that you don't need to worry about a whole lot, and obviously your heroic ability isn't that worrisome to begin with anyway, because you just pop that every single big team fight. So picking Raynor will allow you to focus on the main aspects of the game, which is going to be obviously the team objectives, and to make sure that you're walking together as a group and you can actually focus on the fight without having to really worry about like polymorphing enemies or making sure you're in the perfect positions and whatnot. Raynor is a ranged assassin that it will be the very best early on in the game when grouped up with another hero. The main threats early on are going to be Zeratul and Nova, who can cloak and who you can basically not see except for a little tiny blur that can pop out of nowhere and sort of kill you. So you want to make sure that you are laning with another teammate. Doesn't really matter so much what kind of player they are. Ideally you would go with some sort of healer or a tank or something like that, but even with another damage dealer you should technically be fine. Now before we go over the talent choices that I would recommend, let's first have a look at the abilities that Raynor uses. Raynor's Q is going to be one of the most typical things about Raynor. Basically what it does, it's a skill shot in a direction that has a pretty decent distance, but the nice thing about it is that it doesn't just hit the very first target in that line, but pretty much everything in that line. Now we are going to be getting a talent that will buff this up a little bit, so it actually affects the very first target hit more. However, you know, for the early part of the game, the only thing you really need to know is that the Q hits everything that that line basically covers. What this one does, it deals damage and it knocks back enemies, so it's awesome. Your W is an AoE buff that affects both your minions as well as your allies, in the fact that they can deal more damage and also get some extra attack speed. This means that basically as long as you use this in a group of minions or in a group of allies, you're going to be extremely useful because everyone just deals more damage. The range on the W is quite big, so make sure you use it as often as you possibly can, but obviously you do want to make sure it is off cooldown before a big team fight starts. The W can definitely change the game around. For example, when you're gathering a tribute with your team, if everyone has that buff, it is going to be very easy to nuke down enemy opponents. Your E is called Adrenaline Rush, and what this one does, it is basically a self-heal as soon as you get to low health. Now this is pretty straightforward. As long as you are high health, it won't be triggered, but when you take a bunch of damage, it will automatically trigger itself and heal yourself back up to quite a bunch of HP. Now this is obviously something that is great to get out of trouble. Obviously it is great when your opponents are targeting you, but keep in mind that it isn't as strong in the early part of the game because it is gonna take a little bit of time to heal up. So if your opponent is targeting you and nuking you down very rapidly, the heal won't go off quickly enough. So make sure you are still using this efficiently and you aren't just diving in head first, taking damage knowing that the self-heal will be happening anyway. Raynor has two heroic abilities. I would highly recommend going with Raynor's Raiders. However, if you're first starting off the game, you will only have the Hyperion, which is your first heroic. But after a game, probably one game only, but maybe 2 games, you will unlock Raynor's Raider, which is significantly better. Raynor's Raiders are 2 banshees that you spawn when you activate the ability, and they attack whatever you are attacking. You don't need to really control them, you just sort of pop the button and your damage will be significantly higher than it was before. It will allow you to nuke down anything and anyone as quickly as you possibly can. However, keep in mind, you still want to be popping this in team fights and not so much in one-on-one duels because that is not where Raynor shines. Next up, I want to be talking about the talents that you're using for this build. Now, if you haven't already played a game with Raynor, you won't have all the talents available. This will take a couple of games or so just pick whatever you want. However, I'm going to assume that you are at least level 4 with Raynor, which really takes like 3 or 4 games at most. The reasoning behind certain talent picks is just to make Raynor the easiest to play hero in the game. You don't really focus on active abilities, which may arguably be a little bit better, but you just want to be focusing on your Q and W, and in the team fights you want to be focusing on your R, your heroic abilities in the Banshees. So, you know, I'm not going to be really picking any of the active abilities, I'm mainly going to be focusing on making sure that he's easy to play. The first talent is called Give Me More. This one increases the adrenaline rush healing by 50%, just making your heal straight up a whole lot stronger. And this one is going to be active and useful during the entirety of the game. The next ability is called Vampiric Assault. This is something that you get after hitting level 3, and your basic attacks heal for 15% of the damage dealt to the primary target. This is great because once again it makes you a whole bunch more tanky. Now if you don't have this talent and you are at one of the lower levels, go for Focused Attack. Every 10 seconds your next basic attack deals 50% additional damage, but basic attacks reduce this cooldown. I would highly recommend you go for Vampiric Assault, however Focused Attack is a great alternative. At level 7, I would go with Fight or Flight. Adrenaline Rush cleanses all movement impairing effects and makes you unstoppable for 2 seconds. This one basically means that when you're in trouble and your stealth heal goes off, you can simply go ahead and run away for 2 full seconds. And this may not sound like a whole lot, but trust me, it is plenty to get out of trouble. At level 10, you're gonna go with your heroic ability, which is Raynor's Raiders. I would highly recommend going with Activated Rush, which is your E, basically making this one an activated ability. However, if you aren't comfortable with that, a great all-round option is always going to be Giant Killer. Basic attacks against enemy heroes deal bonus damage equal to 1.5% of the hero's max health, just straight up allowing you to deal more damage to heroes, so this is never a wrong pick. But if you want to make your E an activated ability, Activated Rush is going to be slightly stronger. At level 16, the best talent to go for with this build is going to be Bullseye. The first enemy hit by penetrating round, which is your Q, is stunned for 1 second and takes 50% more damage. Now this is a great hit, but keep in mind it is only the very first target. So while your Q still affects that little line of enemies, you still have to make sure that your first target is going to be an enemy hero, and not so much minions. At level 20, you have 2 different options. The best one would be Bolt of the Storm. This is an activated ability, which I wouldn't really recommend if you're first starting off in the game. So instead, you should probably go with Dusk Wings. Banshees remain cloaked while attacking and fire 1 more missile for each volley. Now, Bolt of the Storm is going to be slightly better if you manage to actually land the ability, but keep in mind this is an activated ability, so you need to press more buttons than you originally had to. Now, if you're very new to the game, please keep in mind that the worst thing you can do is to die. You don't want to die in this game because you're going to give your opponents more XP and you're basically taken out of the battle. Especially later on in the game, you want to make sure that you stay alive as much as possible. A lot of new players are feeling very Rambo and just sort of just running in and trying to fight 2v1. Just never ever do this, stick together with your allies and capture the team objectives. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, when you're new to the game is actually walk on your own and sort of go by yourself. You don't want to do that. Make sure you stick around with your allies because you're going to be a whole lot more useful. Other than that, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know right below that like button in the comment section below. I will try my very best to answer everything that you might want to know about. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I'll see you in the next one.